观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎回到我们的 Dr. J's Word Up Literature Lair. Now, like you know, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And at this point of our story, we are at part 3. Now, I want you all to remember, dear readers, that Mrs. Bennet's driving herself and everyone around her bananas in her efforts to marry off her 5 daughters to wealthy gentlemen was because women at the time could not own property or inherit money at the time. 所以那时候女生真的很可怜，她们没办法遗产到什么财产啊，还是钱啊。这为什么 Mrs. Bennet 那么的疯狂吼？ The reason is because the Bennet family's property belonged to a cousin of Mr. Bennet named Mr. Collins. And he was a pompous, 就是非常骄傲的 jerk who was very arrogant. Okay? 他就是自己以为他是很了不起的。And he was the reverend of a church on the wealthy Catherine de Bourgh's estate. Okay, now this name, 这个名字就非常难，因为我们是讲英文，但是这是法语，所以我们会说 Catherine de Bourgh's estate. Okay, 那可别忘了那时候的英国人，就是他们很怕法国那个拿破仑都会侵略到，就是回到英国来的时候，所以我们有那么多的军人在我们的故事里面的。OK， 所以呢 ，Mr. Bennet knew that his family would lose everything to Mr. Collins when he died if they were unable to marry off one of their 5 daughters to a wealthy man. 所以 Collins 先生他知道，他如果就是没有让人家的，就是嫁给他的女儿的话，那他们就完蛋了。他们什么拢没吼，所以就为什么这个故事一直强调要结婚的那种小那个细节的故事 ，OK？ So, although Mr. Bingley and Darcy were very good friends, they were very different from each other. 那 Mr. Bingley 跟 Darcy 他们虽然是朋友们，可是他们的个性是非常的不一样。Bingley was very easy to get along with. He was very open-minded and had a very good temper. The picky 就好哎哦。但是 however, Darcy, although well-bred, intelligent and clever, was arrogant and very haughty. Okay? 所以 Bingley 是个非常好相处的人，但是 Darcy 真的很难搞。他虽然很聪明，但是他真的很骄傲的那种男生呢。Okay, 那种好家人吼。Okay, now at the same time, Miss Bingley disliked Elizabeth because she knew that Elizabeth was falling in love with Wickham, the soldier who was Darcy's biggest enemy. Okay, so one day when Elizabeth and Wickham were on the street, Darcy suddenly appeared in front of them. 那 Darcy 突然间就冒出来了。Now suddenly, both of the men changed colors. One looked white and the other looked red. Mr. Wickham, after a few minutes, tipped his hat, but Darcy barely returned the salutation. Okay, 所以他们看到对方的时候 ，Darcy 就是好像假装着没有看到他了。Wickham told Eliza or Elizabeth that Darcy's father had ordered Darcy to take care of Wickham before he died. But Darcy had disregarded his father's wishes. 所以那个 Darcy 的爸爸死之前，他只是跟 Darcy 说：“你一定要照顾那个小 Wickham 吗？”但是 Wickham 说 Darcy 就没有做到他该做的事。OK， 所以这是为什么他们就是双方就是变成敌人了。OK，Now. Wickham also said that Darcy treated Wickham cruelly, and he ignored him, which made Elizabeth hate Darcy even more. 所以我们都知道那个 Wickham 一直跟 Elizabeth or Eliza 说 Darcy 的坏话，一共一西派郎啊，你为什么就是喜欢那种人呢 ？OK， 所以我们都开始觉得哦 ，Darcy 真的是个坏人，那种没良心的物件吼。Okay, So, now like we learned before, Bingley and Jane were getting closer and closer to finally getting married. However, just when everyone thought that Bingley was going to propose to Jane, the Bingley family suddenly disappeared. Jane 呢，当然觉得就港口啊，一滴老把塞，他不知道他们去哪里啊。Moreover, Elizabeth knew Darcy had told Bingley not to propose to Jane. And so she also knew that Darcy looked down on the Bennets, 看不起他们了, saying that Mary could not sing and how stupid Mrs. Bennet had looked when she got tipsy at a dance and announced that Bingley would marry Jane. Elizabeth 都知道那个都是 Darcy 一直恭维他们家的坏话，所以谁不会生气呢？那你呢？你会觉得怎么样？那后来呢 One day, out of the blue, Mr. Bennet suddenly told his wife. He said, I hope you've ordered a good dinner today because my cousin, Mr. Collins, who, when I'm dead, may turn you all out of this house as soon as he pleases, is coming. 他的太太说什么呢？就说 Oh, my dear, cried his wife, do not talk of that odious man. 不要讲这个人呢，这个很恶心的人呢，我不想听他的事情哈。Reverend Mr. Collins was a tall, heavy-looking, 25-year-old man who was a strange mixture of pomposity, self-importance, and false humility. 大家都知道这个 Reverend Collins 哈，这是非常的，你们会说虚伪哈。Okay, so now this guy was like a creature without any sense of humor or kindness in him. Okay, 他那种人呢，你要跟他结婚呢？ Now, after Mr. Collins arrived at the Bennet's house, he intended to propose to Jane, but Mrs. Bennet convinced him that Jane was already taken by Mr. Bingley. Okay, so I love this part. Collins then proposed to Elizabeth in a very long speech, and Elizabeth immediately refused him. Collins 就是开始讲那种微博的物件哈 ，Elizabeth 马上就是说闭嘴，我不要听，我拒绝你了。With a formal wave of the hands, Collins said, "It is usual with young ladies to reject the addresses of the man whom they secretly mean to accept. I therefore by no means am discouraged by what you have said, and shall hope to lead you to the altar ere long." 所以那个 Collins 这是开始对 Elizabeth 求婚了。他说：“我知道你这次拒绝了我，可是我告诉你，我能怎样哈？女生拢是安的哈。第一次他们都会拒绝了，很客气，就 KKV 啊。可是我怎样？你很想跟我结婚呢？” "Upon my word, sir," cried Elizabeth, "I do assure you that I am not one of those young ladies who are so daring as to risk their happiness. I am perfectly serious in my refusal. You could not make me happy, and I am convinced that I am the last woman in the world who would make you so." 会很冷啊！我看这句的时候 ，Whoa, my Lady Gaga, I cannot believe this. 他说：“我跟你讲哈，我跟你讲实在话，我是世界上最后一个女生想跟你结婚的，你怎样不？” Well, although Elizabeth kept refusing Mr. Collins's proposals, he would not take no for an answer. 所以虽然 Elizabeth 一直拒绝他 ，Mr. Collins 就是以为他就是跟他玩呢，就是讲那个 KTV 啊。He said, "Your refusals of my addresses are mere words, of course. My situation in life, my connections with the family of De Boer, and my relationship to your own are circumstances highly in my favor." 所以这个男生真的很讨厌的，他一直说：“我很有关系啊，我跟那个 Catherine de Boer 有关系，我跟你们家里有关系。你要想清楚啊，你如果不跟我结婚的话，你们搞不好就是没地方住啊。” "I do assure you, sir," said Elizabeth, "that I have no pretensions whatever to the kind of elegance which consists in tormenting a respectable man. I thank you again and again for the honor you have done me in your proposals, but to accept them is absolutely impossible. My feelings in every respect forbid it. Can I speak plainer? 所以 Elizabeth 说，你跟我求婚，我真的非常非常感谢你，但是我跟你讲很清楚，非常清清楚楚的，我不想跟你结婚。Is there any way I can speak clear? 意思就是说，我的意思够清楚吗？我讲的话讲清楚不？ I am persuaded that, when sanctioned by your excellent parents, my proposals will be acceptable, said Collins. Mrs. Bennet was furious at Elizabeth for refusing Collins, who instead soon asked Elizabeth's best friend, Charlotte Lucas, for her hand in marriage. 所以 Bennet 太太啊，她真气笑她就说 Elizabeth 你为什么拒绝这个很有钱的人呢？那突然间那个 Collins 就是开始对 Charlotte Lucas， 虽然他这没什么好看，对他有兴趣，然后后来跟他求婚的。那你觉得他会说什么呢？ Being a girl with unromantic and practical views of marriage, Charlotte quickly accepted Mr. Collins' proposal and married him for his money. Now, while all of this drama was happening, Jane was suffering from Bingley's disappearance, and it was discovered that the Bingley family had disappeared to London. Mr. Bennet, who was very laid back and relaxed, while his wife was literally going crazy, said, "Now is your time. There are many officers at Meryton. Let Wickham be your man. He is a pleasant fellow." "Thank you, sir, but a less agreeable man would satisfy me," said Elizabeth to her father. 他就说谢谢爸爸哈，可是我觉得那个八字不合，我那个不一定要跟那个 Wickham 在一起结婚呢。As it turned out, Wickham, the officer in whom Elizabeth had been interested before, was suddenly attracted to a woman named Miss King, who had just inherited 10,000 pounds. 所以我们开始知道 Wickham 到底是什么样的人呢？那我们继续看。Being kind, Elizabeth parted on friendly terms with Wickham. When she left to pay a visit to her best friend Charlotte, who had ended up marrying Collins. After arriving, she saw that Charlotte was unhappy after having married the arrogant Mr. Collins. 所以 Elizabeth 一到那个 Charlotte 家，她知道她很难过，就赶扣因为她是跟那个很恶心的那个骄傲的 Collins 结婚的。I see what you're feeling, replied Charlotte. I hope you will be satisfied with what I have done. I'm not romantic, you know. I never was. I only ask for a comfortable home. 所以那个 Charlotte 对 Elizabeth 说：“我知道你失望了，但是我不是那种很浪漫的人呢。你也知道，我要的就是一个很舒服的家庭而已。” Sad, Elizabeth quietly said, "Undoubtedly." Elizabeth thought the strangeness of Mr. Collins's having made 2 offers of marriage to 2 different people within 3 days was nothing compared to Charlotte's suddenly agreeing to marry such a horrible man. 所以 Elizabeth 她就是觉得，她虽然觉得哇，那个 Collins 一直求婚呢，这个很奇怪，但是最奇怪的就是我的朋友，我的 BFF 会跟那个那么恶心的那个人很恶啊，跟他结婚呢，所以她真的很想吐，她就是我的天哪，这个世界那么烂的时代。She felt sorry for Charlotte, a poor woman who needed to marry a wealthy man for survival, who was forced to disgrace herself and who would never be happy in the fate she had chosen. 她真的觉得非常非常的难过，她是觉得说，我的朋友怎么会这样？ 跟那个恶心的人结婚，为了吃饭，为了有房子。So, what will happen next? Will Jane and Bingley marry? Will Elizabeth ever get over her hatred for Darcy? 所以朋友们，这很清楚，就是 Elizabeth 开始跟 Darcy 有那种恨爱的关系啊。那你觉得他会克服他的 prejudice 吗？我们看下一集才会知道。Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have vocabulary words and some quotes that we've chosen for you. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the main idea of this book, which means to get married. 就是结婚啊，结婚呢 okay? There's some funny expressions we say. We say to marry someone off. If you get married, you get hitched. You tie the knot. Or 我觉得最好笑的是 shotgun wedding. Shotgun wedding 的意思就是有一种暗示，就是说那个女生呢，她已经开始有肚子了，所以爸爸在后面有一把枪啊。他说你要跟我女儿结婚哦。That's called a shotgun wedding. 所以你如果看到那个 shotgun wedding 的话，那个新娘是有点有肚子吼 ，OK。然后男生呢就紧张啊，他如果不结婚，他知道他会被杀了。OK， 所以这个是非常好玩的事。Okay, so let's look at some example sentences. Okay, this is a long sentence. Many people wanted to marry their daughters off to wealthy bankers, lawyers, and businessmen. However, the reality is that most women are attracted to bad boys like Mr. Darcy. Let's read that one more time. Many people want to marry their daughters off to wealthy bankers, lawyers, and businessmen. However, the reality is that most women are attracted to bad boys like Mr. Darcy. Okay, now the next word we're going to talk about is arrogant. Okay, arrogant means to be very proud, 很骄傲啊，这很自满哦。Okay. Now, Mr. Darcy is known in this novel as being very arrogant and condescending to people he considers to be low class. Mr. Darcy is known in this novel as being very arrogant and condescending to people he considers to be low class. If you act too arrogantly, people around you will want to kill you. So you really should try to be more kind to others. If you act too arrogant, people around you will want to kill you. So you really should try to be more kind to others. One thing this book teaches us is the strange fact that many women are attracted to arrogant jerks or alpha men like Mr. Darcy. One thing this book teaches us is the strange fact that many women really are attracted to arrogant jerks, alpha men like Mr. Darcy. Okay, now 我们刚刚看到一个字叫做 alpha man, okay? Maybe you don't know, but alpha man is like the king monkey, okay? 这是最厉害的. Okay, a beta is number 2. So in 希腊话就是以前的 alpha is 1, is A, beta is 2. And actually that's why we say alphabet. Yeah, alphabet, A, B, okay? So alpha is the top dog, the big guy, the big fish, the big kahuna. And the beta is the nice guy. Now the next word is declaration. Oh, my Lady Gaga, we have a million words related to declaration. And this 3天3夜讲不完. But that is an announcement that is either written or spoken that is very official. Many people believe the most important document in the US English language is Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. Many people believe the most important document in the US English language is Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. I felt so stupid when she laughed at me when I made my declaration of love for her. I felt so stupid when she laughed at me when I made my declaration of love for her. Now, the next sentence is also related, and I want you just to know that whenever we talk about love, 我们就谈到那个爱情的时候，有的时候你会 declare your love for somebody. I think in Chinese it's like 告白。我告白我对他的感觉都弄赶快呢，英文也是啊。When you declare your love for someone, and your biggest fear is they will start to laugh. Okay, so next. I felt too shy to announce my declaration of love for my classmate, so I remained silent. In other words, 我刚不要就拍谁哈，我本来想跟他说我爱你哟，但是我觉得很害羞啊，跟他拍谁说我都没有讲什么。Okay, so if you want to declare your love for somebody, this is the word to use. Okay, now ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is really important. 请跟着我说 in all likelihood or likely. We see this a lot, okay? Okay, 那中文里面就是 something like 很可能会发生的事 okay? 一件非常有可能会发生的事 okay? In all likelihood, you, like many learners of English, will at first think that this is a very difficult novel to read. However, trust me, that it gets easier the more you read it. The next sentence is really cool. Judging from the fact that she has a rock on her finger, I can assume that that woman is in all likelihood married. Okay, now a rock is a dime, 钻石. Okay, so judging from the fact that she has a rock on her finger, I can assume that that woman is in all likelihood married. Okay, so 你看那些钻石，你知道 off limits, NG, no go. It's a no-go zone. Okay, now the last sentence we have here is, we know in all likelihood that there will be some sort of romance between Elizabeth and either Mr. Darcy or Mr. Bingley. We know in all likelihood that there will be some sort of romance between Elizabeth and either Mr. Darcy or Mr. Bingley. Respectable. That means to be considered socially acceptable, like the 受人家的尊敬. Okay. My father is a very respectable business leader and lawyer, so people know him almost everywhere he goes. My father is a very respectable business leader and lawyer, so people know him almost everywhere he goes. Okay, now the last word we're going to look at is called companion, and I, Dr. J, love this word because I love etymology. Com means with. Pan, in this situation, to my knowledge, means bread. So it means that someone that you're going to break bread with, because in the old days, if somebody was your 朋友,你的朋友,你的最好的朋友,你的朋友, you would break the bread with them at dinner. And so a companion is someone that you really like your BFF, your best friend forever. First sentence is, Mr. Bingley has many friends who are aristocrats. So you could say he has a lot of wealthy companions. Mr. Bingley has many friends who are aristocrats. So you could say he has a lot of wealthy companions. Okay, now let me just stop everything here and remind you of a really important word that's all over this novel called aristocrat. Aristocrat is like a 侯家郎, like a 贵族. So an aristocrat, you could say, is like someone who 阶级很高的, okay? 他不是那种很 low 的人，像我一样。这一个侯家郎, okay? 地主就是很有钱呐，有钱呐，有权呐，什么拢有，什么拢有啊。Elizabeth was beautiful, but did not have many companions because she was very outspoken and had a very sharp tongue. Elizabeth was beautiful, but did not have many companions because she was very outspoken and had a very sharp tongue. 所以 Elizabeth 没有很多朋友们，因为她讲话就非常的直接。Okay, now this quote is really important for the story because this is when Elizabeth is refusing Mr. Collins's proposal for her hand in marriage. And she says, I do assure you that I am not one of those young ladies who are so daring as to risk their happiness. I am perfectly serious in my refusal. OK， 那所以他的意思就是说 ，Hey Collins， 我知道你很有钱呐、你是好家人啊，你很有权利的哦，你是贵族啊，但是我跟你讲，我要的是快乐，我不要的是你的钱，所以我拒绝你的求婚是100%的。And then after she refuses Collins's proposal for her hand in marriage, Elizabeth says, I am convinced that I am the last woman in the world who would make you so. Okay. 她说我是100%清楚，就是我是世界上最后一个女生，就是会让你快乐的。OK， 我真的不是你要的菜。Whoa, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know about you, but I am getting increasingly curious about what's going to happen next. I mean, we got Mr. Collins coming over and proposing to everybody, and everybody said, no thank you, talk to the hand because the ears aren't listening. And then we also have Darcy and Elizabeth kind of having this I-hun relationship going on. What's going to happen to Jane? What's going to happen to Mrs. Bennet? What's going to happen to Mr. Bennet? We don't know. Watch the next part and you will find out because this story is getting good.